as the International AIDS Conference prepares to convene in Washington next week. The Frontline Special tackles the many strands of the disease and its disproportionate effect on the Black community, including the rise in HIV.
What if I told you some of the most iconic Black celebrities in history were taken from us far too soon by a crisis that the world tried to sweep under the rug? The AIDS epidemic was brutal, and it didn't care if you were a singer, actor, or athlete. In this video, we're counting down 20 Black celebrities we lost to the AIDS crisis. Some of the names will shock you. Number 20, Billy Porter. What if I told you one of today's biggest stars kept a life-changing secret for over a decade? Billy Porter's story is more than inspiring. It's a lesson in courage and healing. The Emmy-winning star of the TV show Pose was diagnosed with HIV in 2007, but kept his status quiet out of fear of how the entertainment industry would react. He used his HIV-positive character as a proxy until the COVID-19 pandemic led him to take stock of his life and share his status with the world. The truth is the healing, and I hope this frees me, he told The Hollywood Reporter. Billy Porter's Emmy Award-winning performance as Pray Tell in the groundbreaking television series Pose may have made him a household name, but Porter has been a star his entire career. That's what makes his May 2021 disclosure in The Hollywood Reporter that he's been living with HIV since 2007 so compelling. Instead of resting on his laurels, Porter used his interview to let the world know, "I'm so much more than that diagnosis, and if you don't want to work with me because of my status, you're not worthy to me." With those words, Porter confronted his trauma about having been previously rejected by Broadway and the music industry, for demanding that he be celebrated as a Black queer man, and took a stand not only for himself but for the entire community of people who are living with HIV. Just as importantly, by acknowledging that his decision to disclose didn't happen overnight. He has taught readers everywhere that confronting one's trauma is the key to personal liberation. Stigma and homophobia may still exist, but with Billy Porter stepping up as the culture's newest guiding star, it is clear that nothing can stand in our way.
That I want to do is special music, and it's something that I don't get a chance to do all the time.
Number 19, Sylvester. Imagine being an icon of the disco era and still fighting for recognition in your own community. Sylvester's journey isn't just about music, it's a statement on activism and identity. Sylvester, known as the Queen of Disco, was also a gay drag performer. He unleashed two disco classics, You Make Me Feel Mighty Real and Dance Disco Heat. These two songs charted together on the American Dance Chart and spent 6 weeks at number 1 on this chart in 1978. In 1985, he was summoned to sing backup for Aretha Franklin on her Who's Zoomin' Who comeback album. Sylvester died of complications from AIDS on December 16, 1988. Disco legend Sylvester James, known simply as Sylvester, was a legendary singer and songwriter from San Francisco, known for his signature song, You Make Me Feel Mighty Real, and for his flamboyant appearance and falsetto singing voice. Sylvester died in 1988 from AIDS-related complications. Sylvester left royalties from his music to the AIDS Emergency Fund and to Rita Rocket's food program at San Francisco General Hospital's Ward 86 for people diagnosed with AIDS. The year of his death, Sylvester was working on his third studio album, knowing that he may very well never be able to release it. At the time of his death, Sylvester fought to make more people realize that AIDS was very much an urgent concern for Black people in the U.S. It bothers me that AIDS is still thought of as a gay, white male disease, Sylvester told the Los Angeles Times. The Black community is at the bottom of the line when it comes to getting information, even when we've been so hard hit by this disease. I'd like to think that by going public with this, I can give other people courage to face it.
Is that your natural hair?
This is it. It's all mine.
No way, Jose.
Yes,
Really?
pull it. Pull it. You can see. See?
Number 18, Jermaine Stewart. Remember the iconic 80s anthem, "We Don't Have to Take Our Clothes Off"? The man behind that feel-good track had a tragic story that most fans never knew. R&B lyricist, singer, and dancer Jermaine Stewart was born William Jermaine Stewart in Columbus, Ohio on September 7, 1957, to Eugene Stewart and Ethel M. Stewart. His parents moved the family to Chicago, Illinois in 1972. Stewart had 4 siblings: Eugene Jr., Sandra, Lindra, and Norma. He graduated from Paul Robertson High School in 1975. In 1977, Stewart became recognized on the musical variety show Soul Train. He also performed background vocals for the group Shalimar. In 1983, Stewart relocated to London, England, and by 1984, had his first solo recording contract with Arista Records, where he released his debut album, The Word Is Out, and a hit single by the same name. 2 years later, in 1986, Stewart released the album Frantic Romantic, which became the most successful album, selling more than 1 million copies and peaking at number 34 on the U.S. Billboard album chart. The album included the Billboard Hot 100 Top 10 song, "We Don't Have to Take Our Clothes Off." From 1996 to 1997, while battling AIDS, Stewart recorded several compositions, including his unfinished album, Believe in Me. On March 17, 1997, William Jermaine Stewart died from AIDS complications in Homewood, Illinois. He was 39.
How often do you get to meet the Whitney Houston?
I'm sorry, I just don't share your adolescent enthusiasm with showbiz, folk.
Number 17, Franklin Seals. He was a TV star, known for his sharp wit and smooth charm. But behind the scenes, Franklin Seals faced a battle that even his fans didn't know about. Seals is best known for his TV appearances as Lorenzo Hollingsworth on the NBC sitcom Amen, and as Dexter Stuffins on the NBC sitcom Silver Spoons. Seals made his breakthrough in 1978 with the PBS drama Trial of the Moke, portraying Lieutenant Henry O. Flipper, the first African-American graduate of West Point. He went on to appear in The Onion Field, 1979, in which he portrayed real-life convicted cop killer Jimmy Lee Youngblood Smith. That same year, he also had a minor role in Star Trek, the motion picture. He appeared in the 1981 film Southern Comfort, in which he portrayed Rifleman Cleotis Sims. According to Walter Hill, the director of Southern Comfort, Seals was gay. Seals started noticing symptoms of AIDS-related illness, in particular a persistent cough, on the set of Amen, and had been unable to work regularly for the last couple of years of his life. On May 14, 1990, Seals died at age 37 from complications of AIDS at his family's residence in Brooklyn. He was cremated, and his ashes were scattered in the Caribbean Sea.
This wonderfully soft-hearted, intelligent, poetic giant.
Number 16, Kevin Peter Hall. Imagine bringing some of the scariest movie characters to life and becoming a Hollywood legend, only to be struck down by a silent killer. Kevin Peter Hall's story is tragic and unexpected. Hall was famous for his role in Predator 1987 and Predator 2 1990. The 7-foot 2-inch tall actor married actress Elena Reed, who played Rose on the NBC sitcom 227. In 1990, Hall was involved in a car accident in LA and received a blood transfusion that was contaminated with HIV. Soon after the transfusion, he contracted AIDS and died from complications related to the disease on April 9, 1991. He was 35.
America itself could be presented with elegance and style and class, and also say something about our history.
Number 15, Alvin Ailey. He revolutionized dance and celebrated black culture like no one else, but Alvin Ailey's brilliant life was cut short by the devastating effects of AIDS. Born in Texas in 1931, Alvin Ailey was an enormously influential choreographer who established the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater in 1958 as a testament to the Black American cultural experience. Ailey was honored by the Kennedy Center in 1988 for his contributions to the arts. He died a year later on December 1, 1989, of AIDS-related complications. He was 58. His story gives people hope. It gives people perspective, not just on dance. It really touches your own life, where you're looking at yourself and who you are as a human being. Troy Powell, artistic director of Ailey 2, formerly the Alvin Ailey Repertory Ensemble, said in 2019, "His legacy is so profound." Barry Jenkins, Academy Award-winning director and writer of If Beale Street Could Talk, based on James Baldwin's novel, and Moonlight, recently announced that he will helm a biopic of Ailey.
I thought, you see, people don't know the God of patience.
Number 14, Fela Kuti. An Afrobeat pioneer, political activist, and fearless artist, Fela Kuti's bold voice inspired millions. But he was silenced by a crisis that swept across the globe. Fela Ntakalapo Kuti, born Olufela Olusegun Oludunton Ransom Kuti, was a Nigerian multi-instrumentalist musician, human rights activist, and political maverick. The African continent's most creative Afrobeat superstar, anti-military dictatorship activist, and Pan-Africanist died August 2, 1997, of heart failure caused by AIDS. He was 58. Fela Kuti, also known as Fela, was a musical icon who is credited with founding Afrobeat, which mixes Nigerian music, Ghanaian music, jazz, funk, and other elements. Besides from being a hugely influential and talented musician, Fela was also a political activist who used his music to critique the Nigerian government and its lack of investment in the health and education of Nigerian people. The political part was very essential in the music all the time, his son Femi Kuti says in the documentary Finding Fela. He couldn't understand the love songs in Africa with so much poverty and suffering. Fela died in 1997 from Kaposi sarcoma. Many people living in Nigeria said that Fela sharing his HIV status was akin to Magic Johnson sharing his HIV status in the United States. Though Kuti died from an AIDS-related illness, he did not talk about his status while he was alive. You have to understand the effect of colonialism on people like my father, Femi Kuti said. If Europe talks about AIDS or that AIDS is killing Africa, then people like him would have to fight back. There was not enough proof during my father's era that AIDS was caused by sex. I think the way AIDS was marketed, the propaganda against AIDS was not well put together by the UN.
She has a really firm, fat guy ass. I love that.
Number 13, Trinity K. Bonet. From fierce lip-sync battles to breaking down walls around HIV stigma, Trinity K. Bonet's journey is as inspiring as it is brave. Trinity K. Bonet was a contestant on the 6th season of RuPaul's Drag Race. While a contestant on the show, she notoriously dealt with self-doubt and ultimately came out as living with HIV to her fellow contestants. Trinity was diagnosed with HIV in 2012, 2 years before Drag Race's 6th season aired. Bonet was known on the show for her fierce lip-sync skills, delivering legendary performances of Chaka Khan's I'm Every Woman and Paula Abdul's Vibology. In an interview, New Now Next, Bonet said she spoke about her diagnosis publicly so that I could help someone else going through the same thing. And I wanted my fans to understand that their idols aren't superheroes. You can go through what I'm going through and not be scared.
To know that her baby turned out to be like this. You weren't raised to be like him, baby.
Number 12, Larry Riley. He captured hearts on the small screen, but Larry Riley's secret battle with AIDS was one that only came to light after his death. Riley was best known to screen viewers as his role as C.J. Memphis in the movie A Soldier's Story and as Frank Williams in the primetime soap opera Knots Landing. He was on Knots Landing for 5 seasons. Audience were shocked when they saw his haggard appearance as cop-cum attorney Frank Williams in February 1992, after the show had been on a 5-month hiatus. Larry explained that he had lost 80 pounds from 220 during that time due to kidney trouble, which he attributed to high blood pressure and would be on dialysis for the remainder of his life. After his death only 4 months later, his widow, Nina, disclosed that Larry's renal failure was actually due to AIDS.
Cares enough about them that he's taking the time to design and create it.
Number 11. Willie Donnell Smith. A fashion visionary ahead of his time, Willie Smith's vibrant career was tragically cut short by an illness that knew no boundaries. Smith is considered one of the most successful young black fashion designers in history. Willie Smith was a streetwear designer long before anyone used the term. He coined the phrase street couture. He pioneered multidisciplinary design, and he fundamentally impacted the fashion industry in life and in death. Smith, who was openly gay, died unexpectedly at age 39 after contracting Shigella and pneumonia while on a trip to India, apparently because of AIDS. At the time of the Philly native's death, April 17, 1987, his company, Willie Wear Limited, had sold $25 million worth of clothing a year.
I was scared to put it on record, so we put it on record and said it how we wanted to say it, and everybody didn't pay attention to it.
Number 10. Eazy-E. The godfather of gangsta rap, Eazy-E's legacy in hip-hop is undeniable, but his shocking death brought the harsh realities of AIDS to a new audience. Eazy-E was part of the influential rap hip-hop group NWA, rhyming alongside Dr. Dre and Ice Cube. During the time when NWA was gaining popularity, Eazy-E invested in Ruthless Records and became known as the godfather of gangsta rap. After a falling out, the group disbanded, and Eazy went on to have a moderately successful solo career. This rapper from the group NWA, the subject of the movie Straight Outta Compton, died in 1995 at 31, just a few weeks after learning he had AIDS. He didn't say how he got it, but he told the LA Times, "I have 7 children by 6 different mothers. Maybe success was too good for me." His wife, whom he married just before his death, and his infant son didn't get the virus. Eazy died in 1995 of AIDS complications, only a month after his diagnosis. Shortly before he died, he released a statement to fans saying, "I've got thousands and thousands of young fans that have to learn about what's real when it comes to AIDS. Like the others before me, I would like to turn my own problem into something good that will reach out to all my homeboys and their kin, because I want to save their asses before it's too late. I have learned in the last week that this thing is real, and it doesn't discriminate. It affects everyone."
The dancing and the working it's not just something that I do. It's something that I am.
Number 9. Gene Anthony Ray. He danced his way into stardom and fame, but Gene Anthony Ray's life was marred with battles that went far beyond the dance floor. Gene Anthony Ray shot to fame in the early 1980s when he took on his first and only important role of his acting career. As Leroy Johnson in both the movie and television versions of Fame, Ray used his street-honed disco moves, good looks, and tough guy personality to win over a generation of teenagers. A talented dancer, Ray's problems with drugs and alcohol prohibited him from achieving a successful comeback after Fame's popularity faded. By 1983, Ray's life was beginning to spiral out of control. After failing to show up for Fame rehearsals 100 times and self-admittedly using drugs between shoots, he was fired from the show in 1984. Ray's use of drugs and alcohol continued unabated. His personal and professional life in shambles, he sat idle for 5 months, during which time he gained nearly 30 pounds. Eventually, Ray began to work out, slimming down again to his normal 28-inch waist size. He spent the remainder of his life attempting to reclaim his place in the spotlight, but was never successful. The actor-dancer suffered a stroke in June 2003 and ultimately died from complications of the stroke on November 14th in Manhattan. The Harlem native was 41 years old. and HIV positive at the time of his death.
We was in Atlanta last Tuesday filming our video for the next single, Let Me Be the One.
Number 8, Kenny Green. He was the voice behind some of the most soulful R&B tracks of the 90s, but Kenny Green's life was tragically cut short by the virus that stole so many. As one-third of Intro, Kenny Green was considered by many of his peers and music industry insiders as a pioneering and extremely promising artist. He was the backbone of the group, writing and producing most of their songs. Green also wrote for other artists, penning songs for the then unknown Mary J. Blige, including Reminisce and Love No Limit, and worked with Tevin Campbell, Will Smith, Cameron, 98 Degrees, and Jason Weaver. Known by fans as G-Love, Green is credited with taking the popular New Jack sound farther, giving it what would ultimately be called a neo-soul flair. His writings and arranging was so critically lauded that he and Dave Jam Hall, who produced Mary J. Blige's What's the 411 and much of Madonna's bedtime stories, tied with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis for ASCAP's Songwriter of the Year award in 1993. But there were problems lurking in Kenny Green's private life that threatened everything. Darian Aaron, the creator of Living Out Loud with Darian, blogged, "The closet that Kenny Green was forced to live in the early 90s, and the secrecy and shame surrounding his sexuality and debilitating health would prove to be as detrimental, if not worse, than the disease itself." In his first videos, Kenny Green appeared thick and husky, but he soon began to lose weight, and his bandmates, friends, and people in their label couldn't help but take notice. Green brushed it off as unimportant. He tried different appearances, at one point dyeing his hair blonde and being forced by his label to change it back to black. Green complained of having the flu often and continued to get thinner. He struggled to maintain a grueling touring schedule, even as he continued to deny having any health problems and seeking medical care. That same year, the year of his death, Green revealed to Sister to Sister magazine that he was bisexual and suffering from AIDS. On October 1st, 2001, Kenny Green died in New York City at the age of 32 due to complications from AIDS. His family did not attend the wake, arranged by his friends and studio at the Render Funeral Home on Manhattan's West 14th Street.
That's nasty. He's dedicated to his craft.
It's coming up the news.
Concentrating.
Number 7, Max Robinson. He broke barriers as the first black national news anchor, but Max Robinson's story ended in tragedy that too few people remember. Robinson, the first African-American broadcast network news anchor in the U.S., found out he had AIDS while hospitalized for pneumonia in an Illinois hospital. In the fall of 1988, the former ABC News World News Tonight anchor was in Washington, D.C., to deliver a speech at Howard University School of Journalism when he became increasingly ill. He checked himself into the hospital where he died of AIDS on December 20th, 1988. He was 49. Robinson was a trailblazer, the first black local anchor in the country, and later on ABC, the first African American to anchor a national network newscast. But Robinson also struggled with substance abuse and missed work for long stretches. He fell sick with complications connected to AIDS. He was wrestling with demons most of his life, and it was a sad thing to watch for those of us who loved him, said his former co-anchor Gordon Peterson after his death.
I cross-dress, and I identify like my transgender identity. I'm not trying to be a girl.
Number 6, Mickey Blanco. From tearing down barriers in music to calling out HIV stigma in the industry, Mickey Blanco's journey is both courageous and powerful. In June 2015, then 29-year-old genderqueer rapper Mickey Blanco revealed on their Facebook page that they had been living with HIV since 2011, or as they put it, my entire career. F stigma and hiding in the dark, their initial post said. No more living a lie, they added in the post-comment section. Since coming out, Blanco has called out some national AIDS organizations for typecasting stars who are living with HIV. In February 2018, Blanco tweeted, "It would be awesome if you would book me to perform at one of your galas, like you do so many HIV-negative pop stars instead of continually using me as a token." Blanco was referring to AMFAR, who had used Blanco to highlight its own actions around National Black HIV/AIDS awareness, but invited HIV-negative bisexual singer Halsey to perform at its gala.
Last summer, I formed the Arthur Ashe Foundation for the Defeat of AIDS to raise money for AIDS.
Number 5. Arthur Ashe. He was a tennis legend who fought racism and became a global icon. But Arthur Ashe's story ended in a battle against a virus that knew no boundaries. The man who helped break the color barrier in professional tennis as the first African-American tennis player to be selected to the U.S. Davis Cup team and the only black man ever to win singles titles at Wimbledon, the U.S. Open, and the Australian Open. Ashe reportedly contracted HIV from a blood transfusion during heart surgery, and he announced his illness in 1992 before founding the Arthur Ashe Foundation for the Defeat of AIDS and the Arthur Ashe Institute for Urban Health. Once he went public, he spent the last months of his life raising awareness about HIV/AIDS and spoke about it on the floor of the United Nations. He died of AIDS-related pneumonia in 1993. After Ashe's death, President Bill Clinton honored him with the Presidential Medal of Freedom for his efforts to eradicate HIV and AIDS and for his battle to end discrimination in sports. Much like Asmanoff, tennis legend Arthur Ashe received HIV through a blood transfusion. Ashe, a heterosexual black man, came out in April 1992 about his diagnosis, only a few months after Magic Johnson, another black athlete, came forward. During Ashe's coming out press conference, his wife Jean talked about how they discussed his diagnosis with their then 5-year-old daughter, Camera. "Arthur and I must teach her how to react to new, different, and sometimes cruel comments that have very little to do with her reality," Jean Musami Ashe said at the time. Ashe was forced to come out after a USA Today reporter called him and told him he had been tipped off about Ashe's HIV status. "I was angry that I was put in a position of having to lie if I wanted to protect my privacy," he said at the time. Ashe was the first black man to win the U.S. Open and Wimbledon titles. After his diagnosis, he created the Arthur Ashe Endowment for the Defeat of AIDS.
I mean, you have to focus on what you want. I think you also have to be very careful. I had a severe...
Number 4. Howard Rollins. He was a celebrated actor, but behind the scenes, Howard Rollins' struggle with AIDS remained hidden from the world until it was too late. Howard Rollins Jr. shot to fame when he starred in the play and then the film A Soldier's Story. He was brilliant as the 80-year-old super in Herb Gardner's I'm Not Rappaport during its West End production opposite Paul Scofield. He became well known to TV audiences for his role opposite Carol O'Connor in The Heat of the Night and the hugely successful Ragtime. Personal demons, including drug abuse, haunted Rollins, who went into rehab following a DUI arrest. Toward the end of his life, he was appearing on talk shows, greatly changed in appearance and wearing feminine attire. It was rumored that he worked the streets as a transvestite, and photographic evidence appeared in the National Enquirer. Rollins died from complications of lymphoma 6 weeks after being diagnosed with AIDS. His family and his agent at first refused to release information about the cause of his death.
Aspect of Sounder, it's something else, gang. Why are we talking about Sounder? We were talking about Lost in the...
Number 3. Raymond St. Jacques. A TV judge and a force on the screen, Raymond St. Jacques' battle with AIDS was hidden from the public, even as it took his life. St. Jacques was best known for his 2-year stint as Judge Clayton C. Thomas on the well-forgotten syndicated NBC show Super Court from 1988 to 1990. He died from AIDS-related lymphoma in Los Angeles at age 60. St. Jacques was a discreet fixture in gay clubs and private parties in California and New York, often accompanied by fellow actors and close friend Howard Rollins, and Paul Winfield. In the late 1960s, he suddenly acquired a nephew who was later introduced as his son and given St. Jacques' surname. Sterling St. Jacques was tall, elegant, and very handsome, and he quickly became a successful model and the first black male model to walk the runways of Givenchy, Halston, and Yves Saint Laurent. Sterling became a popular fixture at New York's Studio 54, where he was frequently seen twirling Bianca Jagger, Pat Cleveland, who was briefly his fiancée, and Grace Jones around the floor. In 1974, Sterling had a role in the Italian urban comedy Sistemo l'America e Torno.
That I would come to New York and become someone you'd be proud to call your native son.
Number 2. Andre DeShields. With decades on Broadway and an unforgettable presence, Andre DeShields not only entertained but also broke down barriers in the HIV/AIDS conversation. With 14 Broadway credits and a Tony Award to his name, DeShields is nothing short of a Broadway legend. In addition to acting and singing, he is also an accomplished choreographer and director. DeShields came out as living with HIV in an interview with The Body in 2020 after 3 decades of keeping his status private. "First of all, I love myself," DeShields said. "I'm not in love with myself, but I do love myself, because I've learned if I can't love me, how can I love someone else? And I trust myself, which is why my soul is not ready to leave, because we're having a good time here. We've got things to do, places to go, people to see, things to achieve." DeShields is a highly decorated performer. Aside from the Tony, he's also garnered an Emmy, an Outer Critics Circle Award, an Obie, and others.
Did you have to do that?
Well, I gotta tell you the truth now.
What's the problem?
The problem is you just don't have the muscles. You don't have the...
Number 1. Magic Johnson. He was one of the greatest basketball players of all time. But when Magic Johnson announced he was HIV positive, it changed the world forever. The basketball legend announced he was HIV positive in October 1991. The news was a wake-up call to straight men who thought they weren't at risk for the disease. Johnson retired from the LA Lakers but played in the 1992 NBA All-Star Game and helped the U.S. Olympic team take the gold later that same year. Since then, he's worked to educate people about HIV and AIDS. In the 80s, Johnson enjoyed a successful career with the LA Lakers and was named MVP 3 times. However, it all came to a halt in the early 90s when he learned he was HIV positive and thought he was going to die. "Because of the HIV virus I have obtained, I will have to retire today from the Lakers," he said at a press conference at the time. Sports reporters present cried at the announcement. It was one of the first times a heterosexual, non-white celebrity had come forward with their diagnosis, breaking stereotypes around the disease. Today, Johnson is living a healthy lifestyle and works to raise awareness around HIV and AIDS. "You have to have these conversations because they are important," Johnson said in an interview with PBS Frontline in 2011. "Especially coming from me. I am living with this virus. I don't want my kids to ever have it, so I have to tell them what can happen to them if they do the same thing I did." Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive, check out our other videos on untold Hollywood stories and shocking celebrity secrets. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more. Keep watching. You won't want to miss the next.